Memories from the Future is a genealogical novel, which isn't easy to say. Now, a lot of family historians aren't keen on this genre because it fictionalizes their work. Very often in such a novel, you'll find a character visits various locations, accessing the records that all of us who are interested in family history will be familiar with. But the plot is entirely fiction, and so the discoveries that this character might make are fictional. This is very different to that aspect. Yes, it is a novel, but with the exception of perhaps four characters, everyone mentioned would have been alive at the time the novel is set. Now, it's set in 1911, which is when a census return was taken. And so I have used real people who were alive at the time and possibly in the right location for Arthur, my visitor to Exmoor in 1911, to meet. Now, this means that he travels around and he meets various people, a postman, a police sergeant, a doctor, a solicitor, various characters, and these are real people. Now, in a novel, you would not really want to include characters with the same names because it confuses the reader for obvious reasons. But of course, when you're basing a book on real people, sometimes you do have duplications of names, and there's nothing you can do about it. If I had chosen to change one of the characters' names because there was another character with the same name, it would ruin the whole theory behind what I've written. So I don't think it would be a problem for readers because these characters are in separate sections and they're not connected in any way other than they meet Arthur or Arthur hears about them. Now, the stories that these characters share with Arthur are factual. And so that takes it away from the novel aspect that family historians aren't too keen on. The stories he is told by drivers of his charabanc, of the coaches, etc., are all based on facts that I have researched through newspaper archives. And this is important. Everything that Arthur encounters is true. Now, while he's on Exmoor travelling around, he's sending postcards home to his wife in London and he's keeping a journal. And Hilary, more than 100 years later, she discovers these postcards and the journal, and she is able to follow in Arthur's footsteps. Now, much of what the couple are up to separately involves going on walks. It's like a treasure hunt that Arthur is sent by a friend to look for various things. And those walks are accessible today, and they would have been accessible in 1911. Although the ownership of the area that is now the Exmoor National Park has changed, the paths were permissible. This has been confirmed through my research. So you can use the book, actually, if you're visiting Exmoor, to go on walks. And although the details of these walks aren't the same as you would find in a typical guidebook, with the aid of a map, you'll be able to see the various points and you will see the walk that they have both enjoyed. So it's partly a guidebook, it's partly a book of walks. And it's also an introduction to Exmoor's history. Now, whether you live on Exmoor or whether you're a visitor or whether you're thinking about visiting, this book is an introduction to some of the stories that you may encounter. So it's been a wonderful project for me to actually research and write. Whenever I read a book or see a programme and it says that it's inspired by real events, I love looking at what those real events are, and sometimes I'm a bit disappointed with how they've manipulated the stories. With the case of Memories from the Future, that doesn't happen because the information has been taken from archives, and this is important to me. So, for instance, Arthur overhears a disagreement at one of the locations and hurries away. He doesn't want to get involved. Hilary, using Arthur's journal as a starting point, is able to access family history records which include newspaper archives. she is able to discover what this argument was about because it made the national newspapers. So that's the kind of story that I've included. Now, of course, at the end of the story, there is a twist which definitely places this in the novel category. It is fiction. But everything else up to that point, you can enjoy reading about, knowing that it is based on fact. And the research I've done supports the information that I have included. That is important. And I didn't want people who know the area and know the history to think, that's not quite how it was. If I have misunderstood something, it's because the newspapers, perhaps in the 19th century, got it wrong. And I have found that actually, with the spelling of one character's name, that changed, and I think it's partly due to the fact that perhaps the Somerset accent mispronounced it, and Arthur misheard it, and so that's how that came about. But of course, Hilary is able to confirm the details of this particular person and knows their real name because she's accessed the baptism records. So you can see how, as a family historian, this has actually turned the book into something more than just a novel. So I hope you enjoy reading it. I hope you enjoy the stories that I've shared. And perhaps if you haven't visited Exmoor, this will inspire you to perhaps go and have a look and see why I love the area so much.